Yo, 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 it's your boy Tokyo Stoner. We're back in this Final Fantasy VII Remake hype. And yeah, today we're going to be doing a quick guide on Materias, the best Materias for the mid-game. Obviously, we did an early game guide. And yeah, this is just a mid-game one, keep you up to date. We'll come back later with a late game one and then a hard mode one. So yeah, best Materias for mid-game, let's go. Obviously healing, I ain't gonna say no more. You want to get it mastered, so you know, maxed out, so you get access to all the spells. But yeah, you want to make sure you've got, if you haven't, I've got 3 maxed out healings. Do you get me? I mean, if you haven't got, if you only want one, roll with one, but the more the merrier, to be honest, so your whole party's got it. I got 3 revivals as well. I mean, that's a big investment, but again, Phoenix Downs are expensive money wise. I'd rather save my money for weapons and equipment. So yeah, having raise, I think, is and it's much stronger than the Phoenix Down as well. So revival, I mean, bro, it's super important spell to have. Sometimes your team gets hit and everybody's dead except one character, and sometimes you can't necessarily bank on who that character is gonna be. So just having everybody with a revive can go a long way. Cleansing, it was useful in the early game. It's just as useful now. That is sooner and that resist. Yeah, they're very powerful spells. So I'm pretty sure Isuna gets rid of all negative status effects, and I think resist protects you from a bunch of negative status effects. So super powerful materia, especially because so many enemies are using sleep, you know. So if you're not gonna roll with a cleansing, make sure you buy some smelling salts or waking salts, some item like that wakes up sleeping characters. Then obviously your bread and butters, your fire, ice, lightning, wind. By now you want them either on 2 stars or mastered. So all of your basic spell materials, they should all be on at least 2 stars minimum by the mid game. 3 stars really. Poison, I haven't been using it. Might be super effective, but I haven't been using it that much. It's just, I'm sure if you are using it, try not to use it on mechanical enemies. Try just to use it on biological, so like humans, monsters, etc. But not so much on mechanics, because they're immune to it most of the time. Now, in the early game video, I said barrier wasn't that useful, but in mid game and late game, barrier is top tier useful. It's basically it halves all of your damage taken. So like the barrier spell gives you protection against physical, mana ward gives you protection against magic, and I'm pretty sure mana wall gives you protection against both, and it does half damage. So yeah, like I was saying, early game nothing's really doing much damage, so you don't need it, but by the mid to late game you're definitely going to want that barrier. And just to give you some perspective, we're on chapter 16 right now. This is a bit further than mid game. This is more like heading towards late. I would have said mid is like from chapter 9 to chapter 13 or so, but most of these materials you have access to from that point, so it's all good. Hey yo Elusive, what's happening, bro? You good? Yeah, just doing some materia guides for the people in the YouTube. Right, so back to it. So just to recap, healing's top tier, cleansing top tier, revivals top tier. All of your spell materials need to be 2 to 3 stars by this point. Poison's alright, but I haven't used it that much. Barrier is clutch. If you don't have barrier, there's a lot of situations where you're just gonna be fucked. Like it halves damage. Like it makes you take 50% less, like 100%, wait, 100? 50% less damage from any attack. Like once you get to the 3rd star, so OP. Binding, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really find much use for it, but it's cool. Meh. I wouldn't recommend it for mid to late game. There's other stuff that's more useful. Subversion as well, I haven't used. I mean, it's fun, it's definitely a fun thing, but I haven't been using it. A lot of enemies are immune to death in normal Final Fantasies, so I haven't experimented with it here. But what I would say is that time is OP. Time is one of the best spell materials in the whole game, because you can do cast. You can cast haste with a magnify, and your whole party is gonna have haste. Do you get me? So yeah, time is super OP. Like, make sure you're using it. At some point during the mid game, you unlock your 2nd elemental materia. Elemental materia is still super important. It's not as clutch. I don't use it in every single fight anymore, but for specific enemies where you know the weakness, or you're in an area where most of the enemies share a certain weakness, it is still OP. I usually give it to Tifa or Barret, just because Tifa's got the highest DPS, or if the enemy's out of range, Barret's got the range to handle that. So yeah, elemental is still super OP. Magnify is, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure, in my opinion, I feel like this is the best materia in the game. I've only got one so far. I've done, you know, basically every side quest, all of that stuff. I've only got one magnify materia, and this is all. If you're familiar with the classic FF7, this is your all materia. This makes it so if you cast an offensive spell, it hits all the enemies, and if you cast a recovery spell, it heals all of your team instead of just on one. So yeah, this is ultra rare and one of the most useful materials in the game. It doesn't work by itself. All of these blue materials have to be combined with others. So like if you combine time with magnify, then it will hit across. Do you know what I mean? But if you put magnify or elemental alone, nothing's gonna happen. Right. Warden materia, like at first I overlooked it, but the later it's got into the game, I've realized warden materia is basically a ribbon. Because if you see there, at maximum level, it reduces debuff duration by 100%, right? That's crazy shit. If it reduces it by 100%, that basically means you have no debuff. So it's a ribbon. So warden materia is OP. It only works when you link it with other materials. So if you linked it with the one that's got sleep, yeah, if you linked it with a binding materia, you become immune to sleep, right? And in this game, every enemy is using sleep. So that makes warden a super useful materia. Synergy I haven't used much, but it's pretty cool. It means that if your leader uses an attack, your character will use an attack as well with the linked materia. It's more for fun, in my opinion, and it might be for some OP setups for like end game bosses or whatever, but not really for me right now. HP absorb's cool, but I want to be dealing more damage before I'm going to be investing in this. I just feel like, you know, if we're not dealing enough damage, if we're dealing like 5,000, I saw Tifa did hit her limit break the other day. She hit 9999, but yeah, we have to be dealing consistently higher damage to make that viable for me. AP up, now this is one of your most, make sure you're using AP up. This means that any other materia that your character is rolling with is gonna upgrade twice as fast, right? So when you're trying to master your materials quickly, make sure you're rolling with an AP up. This is super clutch. Right. I still haven't used Chakra, but I've seen a lot of people saying, and also there was comments on another video where someone was explaining how Chakra works. I've heard Chakra is really good, and I mean it heals without using MP. You can heal by just using your ATB gauge, so that's already a pretty OP thing to have. If you've ever run out of MP in the middle of a long fight, then you already know. So yeah, I'm not particularly using Chakra, but I would recommend you at least experiment with it and check it out and see how useful it is on your playthrough. Assess for me is not really useful, but again, with Chadley, he's always asking you to fill out those reports for those rare materials. So make sure you've got one character rolling with Assess at all times and just scanning every new enemy to help you unlock those rare materials. ATB Boost materia, I love it. If you have 1 bar or half a bar, you can trigger it, and that's going to give you either 2 bars or 1 bar. Do you get what I mean? So it doubles however much ATB you have charged. When you trigger this, the amount is going to double. So if your whole party's dead and someone's just got 1 bar, trigger this, you got 2, all of a sudden you can resurrect your whole team, and you know the situations are switched. So ATB Boost is banging. It's also good for when you stagger enemies. Prayer, I prefer Prayer to Chakra. I mean, Prayer takes 2 ATB gauges to use, so it's pretty expensive, but it's OP. It heals the entire team, heals the entire party. In my opinion, this is one of the best materials in the game. Make sure you're using it for those tougher fights. I haven't used Steel at all. Enemy skill, I keep it equipped, but I haven't learned any enemy skills, and you get this quite late in the game. So I think enemy skill is probably more intended for end game and then your hard playthrough, because like I said, you just get it so late in it. I'm not sure how relevant it becomes. HP up is still relevant, although I haven't used it in a while because I've had to focus on more strategic battle focused materials and setups, but HP up is still super useful, and definitely something worth using or giving to your more squishy characters. Like Tifa can be a bit squishy sometimes, especially where she's up front, so maybe try giving it to Tifa or something. MP up materia. Now in early game, like I said, this was useless, but in mid game This is pretty OP because you are very limited on MP in this game, much more limited than you were traditionally. So yeah, I recommend at least giving your MP ups to your mage, your spellcaster. Like here you can see Barrett is my healer, so I've given him both, because there's nothing worse than running out of magic in the middle of a big fight and you can't heal up. Magic up's good, increases your magic power, but like you need to farm it up a bit to make it worthwhile. Luck up is good as well, but again it's more for farming and stuff like that. It's for specific situations. Deadly Dodge is still one of my favorite Materias, just because of how cool it looks, but I haven't used it in a while, and a lot of the time when I'm in a tight spot I find myself de-equipping it and putting something else that's a bit more useful in, but it's still super cool, man. I love it. Now parry as well is worth experimenting with. I haven't used it too much, but it's worth experimenting with, just to see. I'm sure you can do some OP stuff with it. I haven't had to use it yet though. I don't use First Strike as much either, because we've got so many other ATB focused Materias, but First Strike early game's good, mid game maybe not so much. I think one time where First Strike would be useful in the mid to late game is if you're going up against a certain opponent and you really want to have that extra ATB at the beginning of the fight, then this will be useful to having a specific kind of Materia set up to hit a specific target. But otherwise, yeah, it's not too useful. Alright, auto cure. This fell off. As soon as I got to mid game, this completely fell off, just because cure itself does deal such an insignificant heals you, sorry. The amount is so insignificant that, yeah, auto cure, I just had to scrap it towards the end. It wasn't useful enough. Item Master is very helpful in a pinch, especially when you're like maybe in the early mid game when you haven't got enough maybe you haven't got enough maxed out heal Materias or anything like that. You know, if you're low on healers in the team, basically Item Master is really good. It just means that your potions, high potions, everything's more effective. Your ethers are more effective. You can see in the corner there by how much the percentage increases. It's not the biggest increase in the world, considering how small some of the items recover you, but still in the clutch it can be useful. ATB Stagger, oh, this is my favorite. Yeah, I bought 3 of these. This is fucking super amazing Materia. I'm trying to get them all max. Look, this one's 3 stars already, but basically look, large ATB boost on staggering foe. So anytime you stagger it, what's the worst thing to happen in the game? You're wrecking some boss, you're spending, you know, you just spent 20 minutes building up its stagger meter, finally it's staggered, and none of your characters have any ATB gauge left. You can't make any moves. So ATB stagger Materia just means anytime you stagger an enemy, you get a boost to your ATB, right? So it's fucking lit, bro. What else do I have to say? I got 1 for each member of the team. ATB Assist is good if you got someone that you spam moves with. So with Tifa, a lot of the time I'll be spamming, let me double check the abilities because that's kind of useful to you guys. So with Tifa, I'll either be spamming Star Shower or Unbridled Strength a lot of the time, right? So when I'm spamming that, let me get back to where I was. Yeah, so when I'm spamming her, those 2 abilities, this ATB Assist, it means that if you're reusing the ability over and over, it makes it so that you get a small ATB increase. So that's cool as well. Help you rebuild some more stuff. Provoke is nice if you're in a fight where everyone's getting wrecked and you got 1 character who can take the damage. So just give Provoke to, like right now, or not right now, but normally Cloud has it. It just means that if you take if you want to keep the rest of your party, let's say Tifa, you want Tifa in the front dealing massive damage, maybe give Cloud or Barrett the provoke Materia to free Tifa up so she can get the damage while they distract the enemy. Steadfast block is tight. It means that when you block, you take less damage plus your ATB gauge gets boosted. So that's fucking lit, bro. Like, I don't use it all the time, but there's a lot of scenario, like against the Leviathan boss fight, for example, this was clutch. This was ultra clutch against Leviathan. Skill Master Materia, I've got it equipped right now, but I'm not convinced that this is useful. And compared to some of the other Materias we just looked at, I would maybe throw this away. But still, you know, whatever. A refocus is tight. Refocus is ultra tight. it makes it so that basically instead of having 2 ATB gauges, it splits the meter, so you have 3 instead of 2. So obviously instead of making 2 moves with a full bar, you can make 3. That's already OP. And if you combine it, let's see what you can combine it with. If you combine it with this item, Clarity Pendant, this completely refills your gauge after you use Refocus. So with this thing combined with Refocus Materia, when you use your limit break, you get a full gauge and you get 3 turns instead of 2. Right, cool. I guess before I go, let me just speak about some combinations that I'm into. Yeah, Warding and Binding is really good to protect against sleep, because a lot of people use sleep right now. A lot of enemies use sleep. Elemental and Ellie Element. So a lot of the time I give Tifa Fire and Elemental, or Lightning and Elemental, because a lot of humans are weak against fire and a lot of robots are weak against lightning. You know, there's that kind of setup. Yeah, I think that covers it for now. I'm basically towards the end of the game. I'm super excited to finish it, beat the final boss, hit you guys with an end game Materia guide, and then finally a hard mode Materia guide. Once I've beaten hard mode or whatever, I'll do a guide on what I think are definitively like the best Materias in the game. Thanks for all the support, guys. I see all the comments, subscribers, all of that shit, all the likes. It goes a long way. It means a lot. Thank you so much. And yeah, make sure you like, subscribe, check out my Twitch channel, that's Tokyo Stoner. Check out my music channel on YouTube, Light Codes Music. All the good shit's in the description. I'm gonna leave you with some music for the outro. Peace. Nothing but money on my mind. She says she love me, love is blind. She ride it up and down and then rewind. When we fuck, it gets better every time. I got 2 bad bitches by my side. I tell my ops don't even try. Anytime I lift, I let it fly. Come down and put 2 spirits in the sky. Hit your block and put some spirits on the floor. Niggas know I got a lot, but I need more. Nowadays, all my guap is kept offshore. Stash box, I got a couple keys of raw. Whoa, the weed is Arabian, burning it down like a Sabian. I'm coming down to the stadium, rolling with angels and aliens. There's only real ones in my radius. Everyone here know my alias. I'm coming down to the stadiums, rolling with angels and aliens. She take it straight to the face, laughing all of the way to the bank. Pardon, I take it straight to the face, pull up and parking. Jump out the spaceship, step over your carcass. When you look around, you see killers and carnage. My niggas is Martians, yeah, we live and die by the stardom. Even when we're in the darkness, you know we stay lit regardless. All of your bitches, they love me, all of your hatred is harmless. Only the gods can judge me, yeah. Even when we're in the darkness, you know we stay lit regardless. All of your bitches, they love me, all of your hating is harmless.